Catherine Cervasio, it is so great to have you on the She's the Boss Chats, and we're doing it live, which
I know,
is so
I'm so
exciting.
excited.
It's like, I know.
Finally.
The post-COVID thing, yes. So for anyone who's listening, we did try, didn't we, in the lockdown,
did.
and we had just technical disaster after technical disaster.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be.
No, and I said, let's just do it in real life, and oh my goodness, you're my first one. So
Great idea.
It's very exciting.
Okay,
so you are so amazing, and I have known of you for over 20 years now, so tell everyone what you do.
Okay, so I don't know what happened to me. I thought I was just a mum, and then I don't know.
But tell everyone your brand.
Yeah, so I started a brand 26 years ago, kind of by accident, which went on to take over my whole life.
Yes.
That brand, Aroma Baby, was the first natural baby care, as we could find out, in the world.
I would have said it probably was, because it was way before organic and natural
Absolutely.
and everything became trendy.
Yeah, so I was sort of working in fashion and beauty before that, and doing some freelance writing and all the things that a 20-something-year-old girl does, traveling the world. And then I got the surprise news that we were expecting our first baby, and retrenched around the same time.
Right.
And little by little, I sort of started developing the baby brand. But then...
Had you had a background, though? Had you had a background in
the product development role that I had, so I was working for an accessory company just prior to launching Aroma Baby.
But not makeup. I mean, not skincare. It
was skincare. Okay. So I actually did the first body care range for Sports Girl.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that was my favourite job in the world. And as part of that role, I worked on accounts like Maya Miss Shop, Fiorucci, if anybody remembers the brand, Portman's, Witchery,
all the big names.
Esprit. So doing their accessories and product development. And then I sort of had the idea about body care and bringing body care into fashion retail.
Right.
So even that was very innovative at the time, and it was just wonderful. So I wasn't very happy to get retrenched from that job, but then, my whole life changed anyway.
Well, one of the questions I normally ask is, did something happen that sent you in a different direction? And that's the something for you.
Absolutely.
And it's funny, isn't it? Because back in those days, it was just the beginning of all the women who would have children going, I'm not going back to work, I've come up with an idea.
Yes.
Do you remember? Like there was that whole mumpreneur movement.
Absolutely.
And you were right at the very, very tippy point of that, I think.
Yes, I think it was still quite unusual for a woman to have a baby, stay home, and then build a business.
Yes.
And certainly that was the case in our family, or European background on both sides. I remember the business slowly taking over the home.
Yes.
And then we moved into
we're at my house. Look around.
Well, I think, it's much more acceptable these days, I must say.
True.
We slowly took over my ex-husband's business premises. His family had a warehouse. And then we sort of outgrew it, and I thought, you know what, I've got to get out of everybody's hair, and I rented my own warehouse, which was around the corner from theirs.
Yeah.
And never looked back. Employed my first staff, who stayed with me until she had her babies.
Oh, amazing!
And
now
and
your
off we went.
babies are 26.
My baby, who I started the business because of, is 26.
Wow!
And my little bubba is 20. They'll hate me saying that, but
they won't listen.
I'm sure you're right.
All right, so. The next big question, I guess, and the thing that I really love is to go right back to when Catherine was a little girl and talk to me about what kind of a family you grew up with, what your parents did, in terms of whether they were role models for setting up your own business, and then pretty much how your career has evolved since then. And with a 26-year business, I'm sure there's lots to talk about.
Sure,
but
I can't
let's start
even remember.
where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Melbourne, in southeastern suburbs, in the pocket that was very heavily Italian.
Okay.
In Clayton.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think your surname, of course.
Yes. And my father was 9 years my mother's senior.
Right.
So he married an Australian girl.
Yep.
They met through the neighbours. And so I think we had a very, very strong Italian cultural upbringing because the whole family was Italian. My mother was an only child. He was a family of 6.
Yeah, okay.
So being...
And big family? I mean, do you have lots of brothers and sisters?
There was 4 of us.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I was one of 4 as well.
Yes.
That is a big family.
Yeah. My sister went on to have 5, but another sister who had none, and then I had 2. I was
balanced it all out. Myself and my 3 brothers, we've all had 3.
Yeah. So I think, definitely the upbringing, if in hindsight you look back, and nor mum or dad were entrepreneurial as such,
Right.
although my
what
father...
What did your dad do?
He worked for a concreting company.
Oh, okay.
So he was like more of a labourer.
Yeah.
A foreman sort of position,
yeah.
but just a hard worker who worked 7 days a week. It's a typical, was gone in the morning, came home at night, expected dinner on the table, etc. But what he did do, and Mum did as well, they grew their own vegetables and herbs.
Of course, very Italian.
We had grapevines, and so we're very typical.
Tomato vines.
Absolutely. So we made sauce and wine every year. But growing up in a household where food was the central point of the family, that's where we gathered, that's how Mum nurtured. She didn't really work much. She was basically a full-time mum, and that was what was expected as well.
Exactly.
She had three children in 3 years, the first three. So
we now know that means that
you can't do anything.
No, not for 5 years or so.
And in those days, she wasn't driving, so everything was, walking to the shops with the children in tow, one in the pram, one behind the other, sort of
holding hands.
Holding hands. And even I remember going to church on Sundays, walking to church, sort of hand in hand with Mum. And often Dad was working on the weekend too, so it was just Mum and the children.
Right. And so did you love school? Were you into school at all?
That's so funny. I look back and I can see that I was already ambitious and entrepreneurial at school.
Right.
With some
well, that's the thing, isn't it? That's why I like looking back. So
quite funny things.
Way?
Well, I can remember like little things like I love singing.
Yeah.
And I'm not very good at it, but I do love it and I'll give it a go. And at school, I remember with a friend actually organising a little concert in the shed at lunchtime and charging people 5 cents to come in or something.
And did you draw up little tickets? I always used to love doing the tickets in the program.
And we had
much more exciting
lights
than the
with
event.
Coloured cellophane. So we had all the creative.
Oh, really posh.
Yes. And then we donated the money to the school to a charity or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was quite funny. And I remember making toy clowns and they almost resembled people out of calico.
Oh, right.
Again, as in primary school. And I remember making one and giving it to a neighbour, and then somebody ordered one, and then I went on to make quite a few of them.
Oh, my goodness.
So I remember even making one. There was a boy I had a crush on.
Yeah.
And I made one that looked like him. He had quite sort of Italian afro-y hair. He was in a band.
Yeah.
And I had a bit of a crush on him. So I remember making one that looked like him. Very distinctive with the hair and the suit that he wore in the band.
Right.
So that was quite fun. I was making my own dresses at 10 years old. I remember Mum put the zip in.
At 10?
Yes, I had a sewing machine, an old Singer.
And you still make your own clothes?
I don't, unfortunately, but I think, you buy some good timeless pieces, and then there's fast fashion, but I'm more like a timeless piece person.
And we talked about this before, but we should now address what you're wearing, because this is the first time I'm videoing a podcast.
Okay.
And you're looking incredibly glamorous.
Thank you.
But you were talking to me, it was a tribute to Carla Zampatti, so just tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So some friends of mine in the events industry just forwarded me some information about wearing a Carla Zampatti piece on the day of her state funeral. Right. Yes. So in her honour, I have this beautiful
it is gorgeous.
Carla Zampatti skirt, which is a little bit glitzy for work, but as I said, I always like to dress up.
Very glitzy for my lounge room.
Yeah.
But I love it.
No, it's got a story behind it, which I really, really love. And she was like, I guess, an Italian immigrant who was a groundbreaking, trailblazing woman, female entrepreneur, and
absolutely,
business role model.
And tragically has gone way too
and
early
just such a sad thing to happen. So she was certainly.
Okay, so anyway, I interrupted you. So you were talking about making your own clothes at 10.
Yes.
And then growing up, what about high school? What was that like for you?
High school wasn't great. I think I remember originally going to more of an informal school where you were able to choose your own subjects, and I was allowed to go there.
Was that like a Montessori or progressive school or something? There?
It wasn't Montessori, but it was an independent something or other, and I'm not sure why my parents allowed me to go there. But I must say my brother was already there, so that possibly was the reason. He could keep an eye on me, which is what a good
Italian brothers will do.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Brothers will do. Really.
That's right. Yeah, so from that school, I didn't last that long. They didn't like the way I was behaving. I think it was just being a teenager.
Yeah, right.
Very independent and very strong-headed. And I used to sit in the back of the business class, if you like, and we had typing lessons and shorthand lessons and all those sorts of
girls
things.
In those days, cooking lessons.
Yes, cooking I was great. I loved cooking.
Yeah, so did I. But wasn't it called domestic technology or something?
It was.
I can't remember what it was, but it was something that was clearly aimed at women.
Yeah, definitely. Home economics.
My boys loved doing their cooking classes.
Mine did too. Yeah. So I think sitting at the back of the class, working at my own pace, I ended up working at 80 words per minute with, 98% accuracy in my, So I was really driven, really focused. I loved goal setting, and just wanted to get out of school. I thought all I wanted to do was be a really good secretary.
Right.
So I left school far too young. Actually, before I left school, I was transferred to a proper
another incentive to get out of school.
And I lasted there a couple of years, and then I convinced my parents.
So what year did you complete?
10.
Right.
So I left school at 15, just before my 16th birthday.
That's just amazing, isn't it, to think that now, when you just look at the kids of 15 and you kind of think, I don't know, I just imagine that they would be too young to go out and work.
Yeah.
So what was the first job?
So I was already working when I was at school. So I started working part-time at 12.
Right.
I was working in a food business.
Right.
Which
family related?
Not at all.
How did you get a job at 12?
I think I said that I was 14 3/4, which you're allowed. I don't know how I convinced them.
Right. But were you waitressing?
No, it was actually fresh food.
Right.
So they were cooking food, and they had fresh things on Saturday morning where all the Italian women would come in and get their fresh chickens and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So it was more like fresh produce. But I really, really loved that. And I was there until I started my full-time job. So I actually had 2 jobs when I began working.
Right.
And I remember catching public transport for an hour and a half and walking a kilometre to get to my first job.
Not even thinking anything of it.
Not at all. In my heels and my lovely pencil skirt.
Ouch.
At all of 15 or whatever I was. And I remember my boss actually allowed me to get involved with the accounts and work with the accountant at the business.
Right.
And I really did progress quite quickly. But back in the days before inappropriate behaviour was
before me
called
too,
out,
really.
yes, there really was some inappropriate behaviour there. And there was in quite a few of the roles that I had through the years, which is, I look back and I feel, there were so many things that happened that were not okay.
Yeah.
And
anything that really kind of traumatized you or that made you leave jobs, did you have?
Definitely. In fact, I left that one because I got engaged and it just wasn't appropriate to be around a man like that.
Right.
I had another one a little bit later on, a similar sort of thing. I went on to marry my husband. Like
patting him on the bum and being kind of thing, or taking it much further?
It was that kind of thing, but there was one incident where I think he punched me, or not punched me, he sort of knocked me on the boob or something like that.
Right.
And my immediate response was to punch him. So I punched my boss.
Right, so you did those jobs for a while. What was the first full-time job then?
Secretarial.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were working for different kinds of organisations?
All different kinds of organisations. Okay. That one was in sort of manufacturing, and then I went on to another manufacturing one. I was with the lawyer's office for a little while. Then I worked for a refrigeration company. Had a wonderful manager there who was a single dad. Amazing. But when the big boss came down from Sydney, again, there was something inappropriate that was suggested. And I just...
You're just not going to put up with it.
And I was so immature and so naive, and I knew it was wrong, but I just didn't know how to manage that in the workplace.
Yeah.
And so I left again.
Right. So... what happened next?
I ended up at an amazing role with a fashion retailer called Coogee.
I remember Coogee.
And they were in Chapel Street, South Yarra.
Yes.
So I moved to live in Toorak Road, South Yarra, and walked to work, and it was in the Cafe Society. It was in Chapel Street's heyday. So that was really beautiful. I was allowed to work in head office upstairs and do all the admin and reception, and then I was able to work in the store if I wanted. So I had customer-facing experience.
Nice.
I was able to work with the art director a little bit, and the designer became a good friend. So it was really lovely.
But what was the role that you took on? Because it sounds
admin.
like...
I was in reception.
Right, and then just took on more and more and more.
Yes, I think in a lot of those businesses, I talked myself into being able to do more roles within the company.
Right.
And you got a wide range of experience working in a small business.
Yeah, which even today you would say for anyone, you know, I mean, we all know running our own business that you end up having to do put a lot of hats on.
Yes, yes.
In order, especially in the early days. Okay, so you got that role in admin. You were at Coogee. What happened next?
Then I went on to a magazine.
Oh.
And the magazine was a sort of luxury lifestyle magazine based in Carlton. So again, I was in a beautiful area.
And what was your role there? Admin still? Or did you get into sales or something?
No, it was admin, but then I ended up doing proofreading for them. I'm quite good with my language and my writing skills. I was able to write the beauty pages. That was my first official writing gig, if you like.
Yeah.
So I was the beauty writer. I did some proofreading. I organised events. I even did some modelling for them.
Right.
So I had a really big range of roles there. And also with a boutique publishing house, I was able to work with an art director there who also did it in the old-fashioned way, cut and paste, and so colours and things like that were discussed in the office. That was wonderful. That was, you know, we had some beautiful clients. We covered caviar and pearls and, you know, Paspaley, Sheraton Mirage. Pirelli
gorgeous.
Tire calendar, and so really very high-end brands, a lot of European brands and Italian brands, and that was a really lovely experience as well.
Right, and how long did you last there?
I think they were all like 2 or 3 years.
Because they're all kind of starting to... Each one is creeping you up.
Yes.
Next one after that?
And the next one I ended up working at the accessory company, which is where I was retrenched to go into my own business.
Right.
And there I was also on reception.
Yeah.
And I remember the founder of the company, who was a wonderful man, wonderful mentor to me. He suggested to me after 12 months or something, look, why don't you take on this sort of salesy role and I'll give you your own office. And I said, no, I don't want anything to do with sales. I'm not interested. He said, it's not really sales, it's product development. So you go and design, you've got a good eye for things. You go and design some product and accessories and things. I'll send you overseas. I'll give you a car, I'll give you a pay rise, I'll give you an office.
You did not say no to that. Please don't tell me.
Well, I almost did, but he said to me, if you don't like the job, then you can have your old job back. And I said that was a deal.
Yeah, okay.
And of course, I never looked back.
No.
So he saw some creative flair and encouraged me to come outside my comfort zone. And
so when you were made redundant, was there a bit of a light bulb moment with your child? Did they have a particularly bad nappy rash? Was there something that made you think, I'm going to go into skincare? Because Aroma Baby was specifically for babies in those days, wasn't it? And there was never skincare really for babies outside of Johnson & Johnson.
That's right. Well, I think with that role, because I was able to have that creative license, and I ended up doing body care for Sportsgirl and some other brands, I became very fascinated. I was always passionate about health and nutrition. I used to read the Blackmore's catalogue cover to cover. One of my first books was Earl Mindell's Vitamin Bible.
Right.
So there's just...
Yeah, you'd always
you look back and you think I was always cooking with herbs. I was always reading about nutrition and vitamins and well-being and using natural ingredients. I was making face masks as a teenager using mashed avocado.
Right.
So it was always there.
Yeah.
But during the role of developing these products, when I became pregnant, I didn't even think of product and baby care.
Yeah.
I really just thought, gosh, you know, that's an interesting thing. I wonder how I'm going to manage work with that. That's really what I thought. So when I got retrenched just a few weeks later.
Oh, so you were quite early in the pregnancy when you got retrenched?
Yes. And
don't tell me, it wasn't anything about the pregnancy?
No, not at all. They were closing that section of the business.
Right.
I remember thinking like I was, you know, producing several $1 million worth of turnover from my accounts, and not understanding the profit was only so small.
Yes,
very low margin.
Yeah, which is something that a lot of people don't realise about retail anyway.
Yes, and when you don't have your own business and you're in your 20s, you don't understand
wow,
about.
That's $36. Wow, you know, they probably paid $3 for it. Look how much money they're making.
But in terms of us, you know, buying this item for $5 and selling it for $5.50, and then maybe Sportsgirl or whoever it was selling it for $20.
Yeah.
The company I worked for only had a very small margin and the overheads to go with it.
Yeah.
It's only when you have your own business that you understand. So I remember thinking, why isn't this category working?
Yeah.
Because there's so much turnover.
That probably also fueled the idea of you doing it yourself, because you would have said there's so much money there to be made, and I've been making millions for this other brand.
Yes.
Why can't I do it?
It was a quick lesson.
But there wasn't sort of a moment where you just went, okay, I'm going to start my own brand. It had sort of been there in the back of your mind, had it?
Not at all. I
right.
was very happy working for somebody else and loved my jobs.
So why didn't you just go for another job?
Well, I was pregnant. I actually went for a job at Country Road.
Oh, I see.
And then I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to say to them? So, look, I thought, well, I could continue doing some level of product development. I had some new clients, clients that I hadn't dealt with at that company. So, and a lot of what I did was my own creativity. So it's developing, for them, with them, these products and body care. And then as I got into the pregnancy, a few months went by, I thought, what about baby care? And I started looking at research. So all the research that I read was linking commercial products and skincare ingredients to irritation and eczema.
Right.
Then I started studying the eczema factor, and there was 1 in 3 babies at that time under 6 months old that experienced eczema in their life at some point.
Right. Wow, I didn't realise it was so high.
It is so high. It is crazy. So I think I'm a very passionate, sort of heart-centered, driven person.
Yes.
And I thought, this is just not okay. Who could do something that can help these that could help these parents? So I need to do something.
Right.
I was already working.
Yes.
There's
always a little.
So I was working with laboratories at the time already in my other role.
Right.
So I tried to formulate, and I got a little bit of input from a couple of chemists, and they just weren't on the same page because it was far too innovative. Nobody knew the difference between natural vitamin E and synthetic, and they were always trying to steer me towards the synthetic commercial.
Because it was cheaper.
And the things they're used to developing with.
Okay.
So unless you get an innovative chemist who's looking at unique formulations and cutting edge technology, they're not going to want to really go down the path of using novel ingredients because there's not enough demand for it.
Right.
And again, as a commercial business now, I can totally understand that. So I really did push a few people outside their comfort zones, and I ended up finding somebody who worked on it with me.
Right.
That person had been involved in the early days of Gelique's products, so that was as nearest as natural as you could get at the time. But they didn't have any baby care. And over the next couple of years, it was refined to basically, we did powder using cornstarch, which was a food grade product, instead of using talc.
Right.
We used the natural vitamin E, as I said. We would use evening primrose was a very early one for me, and calendula. At the time, we couldn't get organic at the time, but replacing, some of the synthetic oils with the botanicals.
Diazo, blah, 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 had -3 with this plant instead.
Yes. And even preservative systems, they weren't great at the time.
Right.
And I remember investigating things like colloidal silver, which were all the rage, 20 years ago, but they weren't approved for baby care. So it wasn't as simple as just looking at what's out there. No. It was about looking at the safety in terms of its relativity in baby skincare products.
And then what was it like pushing out something? I mean, you had to educate the market pretty much.
Definitely.
At that stage, there was just nothing. And yours would have been more expensive, I would have imagined.
It was.
So how was that for you? I mean, how hard is it to try and build a new sector, basically?
Look, I think it wasn't that difficult to build a new sector for me, because at the time it was the first to market.
Yeah.
I was...
and the beginning of the baby boom, I guess, as well.
Yes.
Because there was a huge spike, wasn't
That's
there?
right.
The beginning of the 2000s.
And I really had a lot of information and research documentation. So I went there armed with all this information. And I went first to my local pharmacy and also to my local private hospital.
And they snapped it up, I'm sure.
They did. And that sort of, it grew from there. So one maternity hospital, midwives often worked at 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So then they would work at another hospital and they introduced it to another hospital. And we ended up working with, maybe 50 hospitals at the time around Australia.
Yeah.
And
when you say we, how many of you were there?
Oh, there was
in
just
those
me,
days?
I think.
You? And what about your hubby partner? Was he really supportive of what you were doing? Or?
At the time, my husband had his own thing. He was doing his own thing.
So did he think it was just your little hobby on the side?
Kind of, yeah. And although the family was very supportive in terms of helping with the children, or the baby that I had at the time, and eventually the 2 boys, and providing the warehouse space where I could work, which was just amazing. I think in the way that we know today is the type of support that you need to give each other.
Yeah.
It wasn't really there. And in fact, the business became an issue for our relationship, unfortunately. So
right, as in it ended, and then you moved on to a different relationship, or it just became fraught.
It became difficult because I needed to travel for work and.
Right. And were you married to a very traditional man who was going, hang on a minute, you're supposed to be looking after the baby?
Yes,
That's my job to go and do the travel and stuff.
Yes.
Right.
Also, I was making enough money that I could take my baby with me, and I remember taking a baby and a babysitter. So I just wanted my babies with me.
Yes, which is totally understandable.
So that was wonderful. We did a few family holidays and business trips combined with the three of us and then the four of us.
Yeah.
But just over time, it just wasn't healthy.
All right.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I just wanted to ask that because it's just interesting to know whether you've got somebody who's kind of doing the journey and pushing you along.
Yes.
Or kind of, which happened with me as well, where it just created a disconnect, really.
Look, I've read reports of some very, well-known female entrepreneurs talking about the role of their partners and significant others in the role that they played in the success of their own careers.
Yeah.
And look, it is a thing. I think whether it's a woman or a man, if you are not with a supportive partner, it can really dramatically negatively impact
Absolutely.
What you're doing and the success opportunities.
Yeah, or you just kind of go, okay, well, this isn't the relationship for me, which is sad in itself. So, okay, so you started growing the business. How did and talk to me about 26 years of running a business. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine. I can only guess that there were pivotal times where things happened and you just went, what am I going to do now? Like, someone can't supply it or...
Yes.
I don't know, retailers. So can you talk to me about some of those and what you've learned from it? Because
sure.
I do think for the women listening that it's interesting for everyone to know that things don't always go perfectly.
No, they don't.
And that sometimes a catastrophe can turn into a gift.
Yes.
But it doesn't seem it at the time. So
yes. Oh, look, there are so many.
Can you think of a couple of juicy ones?
Definitely. But I'll just say that in the early days, so within the first few years, we were approached by somebody to export. So I remember I had one staff member at that time.
Yeah.
And signing an agreement with these.
What country were you exporting?
It was Korea.
Okay, so big.
Yes. So it was a sizable contract. And
actually, sorry, I'm just going to say, really interesting is because Korea's a bit of a leader in skincare these days.
They are, definitely.
And yet in those days, we never heard about anything out of Korea.
So they had
interesting that they'd heard of you.
I think one of the good things was I got the product into Maya, and I was in Maya for a long time. And these visitors to Australia went to Maya to look what product was on the shelf.
Yeah, okay.
And there was only our product in the baby category. In fact, there was only ours in cosmetics and baby. And then they approached us. So that was great, and it was able to propel the business to employ a couple of staff. So we grew substantially. Yeah. Then.
You never went into retail, did you? As in opening our own Aroma Baby shops?
No, and we certainly explored that, but we decided that it was a complete separate business. Yeah. And with the business still growing and other export markets presenting themselves, I just thought that I couldn't be a present mum and still manage the business and that growth.
Right.
I think we were saying earlier that for me it was never about strategy at any cost, building the business and turnover. It was really about it fitting in with my ethos and
the family and
definitely.
What it was that you wanted to do. So how did it grow? Sorry, and I also just asked you, and I've interrupted you.
Yes.
Tell us some pivotal moments.
Sure. So that was a great one.
And decided to go with the export. So I mean, you're all over the world now.
We're in a dozen countries.
Right.
But this next thing actually caused the opposite to happen. So I went through a very messy divorce, which lasted 3 years.
Oy.
And part of that was separating the business assets or having the business valued. So it was, I just cannot explain how that was. And just before that happened, a competitor emerged in the market, which basically copied our marketing material. And although their product looked quite different when it launched, and I actually met this person at an expo who said, mine's nothing like yours and you're doing a great job. And,
I was sort of supportive, but you didn't believe them?
No, I did. Yeah. Of course I did. But then within a few short months, the product had changed. The packaging looked like mine, with the very distinctive square and the silver and the font was the same and the wording was the same. The bottles were the same material. So it looked on a shelf very, very similar. My understanding from the industry was that it was presented to pharmacies as like Aroma Baby but cheaper. Because not everybody could afford Aroma Baby, so this was an alternative for those parents.
Oh my gosh!
So and then the other ones thought that it was my brand.
Yes.
So it
was undermining everything.
Absolutely everything. So and then to be going through the divorce around that time as well, I really just thought. I remember putting my head on the keyboard, and it actually makes me emotional to think about it. And thinking to myself, I'm actually not cut out for business. I can't do this. Because I'm not that ruthless.
No, who would ever do that? I mean, I'm with you.
But people do, and I think because it was a female-run business.
Naively, it wouldn't have even occurred to me that someone would do that.
Yes, it's interesting. You know, that business went on to be very successful, and I won't go into any more because you'll guess who it is if I say any more.
No, we won't.
But yes.
So how did you feel, and what did you do about that? I guess forgetting about the brand, what did you do to?
Initially, we did take legal action,
right.
But then it was it's very hard to protect your.
And isn't there a 10%? If there's a 10% difference,
yeah, it's very hard to protect intellectual property. So at the end of the day, I had to cut my losses and just keep moving forward.
Right.
Because we had export markets, we were able to grow in the export markets. But I really, honestly, was depleted on the inside, and was more emotional than anything else.
I mean, I know with me, I had someone walk away in the middle of a build with having spent all the money that I had for a website. And I just, my reaction, and I've seen myself do this now a couple of times, is I kind of freeze. I literally don't know what to do. And I have about a week of, I don't even know what to do. Like, I just want to pretend it didn't happen.
I totally can agree with that. And in fact, when I was retrenched from the previous job, I did that for a day or two and then went,
that's
bingo,
right. I
got
feel
an
like
idea.
I need to wallow in it for a while and then go, okay, now.
Yes. And with that as well, it probably did take a little while because it was such a dramatic thing that was going on.
So were you losing sales? Like were people literally saying, we don't want yours, we're going to go with the cheaper version of yours?
Or they put it in alongside ours and would discontinue ours.
Oh, God. Okay.
And it was basically, we had all our stockists listed on the website. Every stockist was targeted. Then it became the hospitals. Every hospital was targeted. Oh my God. So my product had all the research and it was very specific and technical.
And innovative for the time, whereas they've just gone copycat.
For a cheaper brand to come in without the know-how, without the research, but saying, oh, it's like that.
Yeah.
It opened the doors for them because, midwives and health professionals assumed that it was the same or similar.
Yeah.
And it wasn't at all.
Right.
So
what do you do when that happens?
So I really just focused on the children.
Yeah.
I pulled back from the business. I did my export, which what I love about export was they really value your story and innovate. They don't get the wool pulled over their eyes. It wasn't all about margin.
Right.
Whereas here, it's like if they can get 5% more margin and it looks good enough, that'll do.
Right.
It's all about shelf space. But in Asia, for example, there's so much market and so much opportunity that they've got the opportunity themselves to try out more niche brands.
Right, yes, of course.
So, and because the market is so big.
How big is it? I mean, how many people are there in Korea? I have no idea.
Well, I'm actually not even sure what their population is at the moment.
Millions of
yes.
And
you look at China with 1 billion, and then next door is Hong Kong.
Yeah,
so if you're in Hong Kong, there's going to be a little bit of flow on. People come into Hong Kong from China and take it across the border. So if you look at the capacity to grow and the capacity for buyers to take a punt on more novel, niche or indie brands, as we call them these days, then that's the sort of thing that can really help you and build the brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we didn't really need...
And also there's a great cachet of,
yes.
we're international.
Yes.
Which hopefully the other brand wasn't able to do. Did they start exporting? I mean,
I think they eventually...
The fact that they copied you.
Yeah, they did eventually, but I think we had such a stronghold in some of the other countries. And I developed some really beautiful connections with buyers and owners and distributors that we still have wonderful friends with some very major buyers in Mothercare and Watson's Pharmacy in Asia and other places, because I've taken the time to go there and our families have
build the relationship.
Yes. I've learnt a bit of the language, and for me, it's genuine. It's not about building the business. It's about, I really am interested in the culture. I really am interested in their family and connecting and understanding their businesses from their perspective, not just about what can they do for me?
Yeah, that's right. And I think that if you take that time to build those relationships, they stay solid. You know, that's not when someone can come along and undermine you by saying we've got something cheaper. They go, but we know this product, we know this person. And that's, for anyone who's listening, big tip, build those relationships and that trust.
Yes.
Because then, you know, people can't undermine it. So, yeah, keep going.
And a little tricky these days without having the face-to-face. So for international travel, if you've built those relationships in the preceding 10 or 20 years, then they hold you in good stead when you come up with, you know, such a challenge like COVID last year, not being able to travel at all.
So let's talk about that. How did that affect you? I mean, if people all stopped going out, did they start buying all their skincare online? Do you sell online?
We hardly ever sold online because we were a traditional business-to-business model. And also really, again, like my values, I felt that why would I be pushing my own online platform when I've got these wonderful, supportive
retailers and I want to send people to them.
So I'm very much of that mindset, and I've found a way to change what our offering is, and we're looking at more of a gift registry, a baby gift service, which doesn't interact with, you know, anything I'm doing elsewhere. And also, you know, online.
Great idea.
Yeah, and online with Maya, being able to offer them bundle buys and different gift packs that we might offer to a pharmacy online. So we've been able to slightly diversify the offering between consumers, what consumers are getting directly with us, and what we're offering our business retailers.
You are so clever. I just think I'm so
happy
that you're sharing this journey with me.
It's just an ongoing pivot, if you like. It's just always coming up with something. Sure, we did, you know, face masks and sanitizers during COVID, but the way that we did it had to be in line with the ethos of the business. So there was people knocking on our door trying to offer us sanitizer, and I looked at the formulation and it was like, it's rubbish. It is chemical. And I think the people that were selling them didn't know or didn't care what the ingredients were.
So what is a disinfectant that's natural?
So what we did was we used a locally grown vegan Australian ethanol.
Oh, okay.
So it's grown here, and the ethanol is derived from Australian crop.
Yeah, okay.
And so it's predominantly that. So it's the simplest formula. We have pure essential oils. As an aromatherapist, I was able to, you know, specifically choose what I thought would be good for both disinfectant properties, antibacterial, and of course aroma, because it needs to smell enjoyable. It needs to be enjoyable to use.
Absolutely.
And we do have natural vitamin E in there and a little bit of natural aloe. But
to stop everyone's hands cracking and drying out from putting on the...
I think if you're going to use a sanitizer, chances are you'll get dry hands. The amount of those additives is very, very small.
Yeah.
And but it does have some benefit. So my advice would be just to moisturize your hands frequently with a good natural oil-based moisturizer. Right. Because sanitizers are definitely here to stay. But you want one that smells pleasant and does the job, uses Australian ingredients,
ideally,
and is not going to damage your skin or your immune system.
Yeah, great. So in a few minutes I'm going to ask a few other questions, but I'm just so fascinated in this amazing business that you've built, and I'm interested to know what are your goals? So, like, where would you like to be in 5 or 10 years? Have you got, you know, a big vision for it, or is it going to the next generation? What are your plans for it?
It's not going to the next generation. They are so not interested.
Yeah, right.
In fact, they're it's so what?
My crazy mum.
Yeah, another interview, another country, another celebrity letter. And I must say that was one of our highs. We actually gifted Meghan and Harry when they were in Australia.
No.
We did, and we have the photographs of the product being given to her and the product in her arms, etc. But that came about as...
Did you get the amazing cursive writing thank you note from Meghan?
No, we didn't, but we've got them from other, you know, Princess Mary and...
Have you?
Yes, we do.
Oh my God, tell me more about this. I love the celebrity thing. So what was the first celebrity that you approached that loved it?
Well, actually, a friend of ours gifted it to John Travolta. He was in... It was a business...
Is this right at the beginning, like when Ella Blue was born, or was it the son that was born...
It was a
8 years ago or whatever.
Yes, it was around the time of Qantas's 90th birthday, and he was in Sydney for the celebration. Yeah. So it was around 10 years ago. And they needed a baby gift from Australia, which was a luxury sort of brand. Yeah. And they chose ours, and it was hand given to him. He took it home on his jet to his wife, and Kelly wrote me a beautiful note. But that's not where it stops.
Right.
The interesting thing with that particular one was that I actually went to an event in LA and they were at the event.
Right.
And I introduced myself and I said to Kelly, "Oh, you wrote me that beautiful note. Thank you so much." And she reached over to John and she said, "John, this is the lady with the baby products from Australia." So we had a lovely chat and she told me she was still breastfeeding and they were leaving the event early. And we had a gorgeous photo together. So it was like it came full circle. And it was just a really lovely thing to happen. Princess Mary sent a beautiful letter saying she loved the products. Curtis.
J-Lo? What about J-Lo when she had
No,
the
look,
twins?
some of them you just can't get to, despite,
I know.
Often ours are personal connections. Personal.
Someone saying we're going to see so-and-so, so-and-so's coming.
I remember when Michael Jackson was in Melbourne, this is years ago. This is probably 15.
But he's been dead for a long time.
Yeah, 15,
now.
16, 17 years ago. I talked my way into the Grand Hyatt it is now through security and up to the penthouse. Right. And his head of security took the product from me and passed it on.
Right.
So don't ask me how I did that, and I would definitely not do it now.
I mean, do you know that it got to him? Did he use it on?
Didn't get to him. It got given to a woman who was travelling with them, the support band. And I know that because at a baby expo some years later, she came and approached me and she said, "I just want you to know I ended up with that product. I did the tour with them. I've told 1,000 people, so it didn't go to waste."
Yeah.
But just, it's so many wonderful stories we've heard.
Yeah.
I've had calls from TV personalities, radio announcers, letters, emails.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Jamie Oliver, Curtis Stone. I've dropped product into his restaurant in LA when I'm there.
Amazing.
But the boys are a bit bigger now. But, back in the day, and I think, look, when you do good stuff and you really work, with good intention and have really good values and it's not that strategic, doors open up. And people have said to me, "Oh, so-and-so's pregnant. I'm going to buy your gift for them." Or, "Would you like to gift so-and-so?" Or I've got connections. I've called a radio station to answer a question and I've said, "Oh, it's Catherine from Aroma Baby." And I remember Chrissy Swan, for example, saying, "Oh my God, we love Aroma Baby." Yeah. So I think after this many years with so many people that didn't have any choice of natural skincare, they all used or bought or were gifted Aroma Baby. So there's so many memories.
We've got that second generation now.
We
almost,
do.
Where young girls who grew up seeing those coloured bottles in the nursery when they were little.
That's right.
Now are looking to have that comfort of being able to buy it for their own children.
We definitely have mums approaching us and saying, "I'm buying it for my granddaughter," or, my daughter's having a baby. And so that is really, really lovely.
Yeah, amazing. And
we've looked at the end of the day, right in the beginning, we started getting good results with eczema. Right. And we became a sponsor of the Eczema Association. Right. And I just thought, wow, our product, just by leaving out those chemicals and putting in some good, active ingredients, we've been able to change the lives of people who couldn't use anything except cortisone creams and steroids. So I just think you just...
life-changing.
Absolutely.
Life-changing. And it's funny that you should say that because a friend of mine had a laundry brand called Yucca. I don't know if you know it, but that also... We were able to claim that it would stop the irritation that a lot of kids get from all the filler that's in laundry products, and so I became very familiar with that. And I did some PR for them around the fact that this is a washing powder that if you've got sensitive kids with sensitive skin, and it just went off, absolutely went off. So it obviously is a huge problem.
I think the thing today is that there's so many natural brands, there's so much confusion, there's so much greenwashing that. If a brand uses some degree of natural ingredients and makes claims, parents automatically think it's safe. Yeah. But in fact, sometimes it's the botanical or the choice of the essential oil that is the most irritating thing in a product. So you really do need expertise and qualifications in that area. And I went back to school to study.
When?
Through my second pregnancy. So I got a diploma in aromatherapy and then I became an infant massage teacher over the course of 3 years. So that, that sort of helped me just to understand the chemistry behind what I already knew in the research.
Amazing. What a woman you are. All right. So my next question is really because this is called She's the Boss and it's about women in business.
Yep.
Have there been any women that have helped you along the way that you think that made a difference that you'd like to do a shout out for? Or has it been a bit cutthroat? I mean, I'm really interested because I know that some industries there are incredibly supportive people, and then others they got nothing, or they had women undercutting them, like you had.
Yeah, look, I've got to say, unfortunately, that it was the latter for me.
Right.
I worked pretty much alone, and I think as an innovative person in the industry, you're the one that's setting the benchmark and doing the groundwork. And the people that supported me were all the wonderful midwives and the female buyers that gave it a go.
Yeah.
That gave me a go, and that supported me, you know, not only overseas, but in Australia. Women I met at events, you know, in the last few years where I've become, you know, sort of a little bit more time for myself and with the business now that the boys are, you know, 20 and 26. So now I've met a lot of, you know, wonderful women that, you know, just give you great feedback and, you know, they're supportive. And so now it's good.
But in the early days, you didn't have some fabulous woman with a skincare brand that went, oh,
No.
you're amazing, what you're trying to do, let me help you.
I mean, I admire people like Janine Ellis.
Yes.
You know,
and
Emma
the
Isaacs.
Body Shop would have been, what was that woman's name?
People said to me that you're like her,
right.
You know, so in that sort of innovative space. Anita Roddick.
Yeah, that's right.
A wonderful woman who, you know, had
changed everything.
Yeah,
really.
and with her heart in the business and in the right place. Kate Morris, Adore Beauty. I mean, I look at, you know, businesses like that where, yes, they had the support of their amazing partners, which is wonderful, but still generous and successful women who went on to have children, and then exited or did IPOs and went public, and just, you know, wonderful success stories.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of the reason why I do this, is to have those role models. We need to make it visible that it's possible. All right, talk to me about, and I bet there's a difference now. So my next question is, I am always interested when you're passionate about something and it's your baby in terms of your business, it's hard to switch off sometimes. And if you have got a family, especially, you know, when you've got young kids, how did you juggle that? Were the kids kind of brought, well, you've said to an extent that they were brought with you with travel, but have you got clear lines where you go, okay, weekends are for the kids and after 6 is for the kids, or has it always been just blurred and mixed together because it's such a passion?
Yeah, look, there are there is some blurred, you know, lines with that. It goes with the territory. Dealing with Asia, there's a 3-hour time difference often, so you know, there is that expectation. But as an avid cook and foodie, and, you know, very passionate,
make time for dinner.
Absolutely. So that is the thing that's kept the family communicating around the dinner table.
Yeah.
And girlfriends as they've come into the picture as well. So rather than go out, let's sit down and have a table, you know, for 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think, you know...
Did you risk burning out, do you think, at any stage?
Definitely.
Or you did?
Yes.
Right.
And look, with...
You're lucky then. I keep hearing all these women and it's just... They've pushed it that bit too far and their whole body's broken down. They've all got chronic fatigue and spent a year in bed, or, you know, really quite confronting kind of things.
Look, I don't know the situation, but all I can say is that with a real, authentic health and well-being background, if you can't take notice of when your body's telling you to stop, then there's an issue there. I mean, if you really are a health and well-being advocate,
that's so true.
You need to live that.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean you won't fall in a heap, and I certainly did. That period of time with the competitor and then going through the divorce, I actually scaled my business back.
Right.
I could see that I wasn't able to work well and be a good mother and emotionally manage. So my business went from, you know, multi-million dollars back to a you know, six-figure sum. And I was a bit embarrassed. I felt like a failure.
Funny, isn't it? Because I'm sure nobody else thought you were a failure at the time, but you just, your head plays tricks with you.
Yeah. And then you go back to but I left school at 15, I don't have a degree, and then
look what I've done.
No, it was more like I don't have those things. Yeah, and I'm not successful, and I don't have what it takes. Maybe I should have got a degree. Maybe I need different, you know, strengths. Maybe, but now, having come through all of that, I can see that it really is. It's really about your life skills and your value set. My business can be a multi-million-dollar business by me just saying yes to a contract.
Yeah.
But I'm very careful who I choose to work with and the ways I try to work.
Have you ever said yes? Sorry, have you ever said yes to a sale because of the money, and then looked at it afterwards and gone, what a disaster, I shouldn't have done it? Is that one of the learnings that you've had that you now go, no, I'm not saying yes to everything?
I would say that not exactly in that way. For example, with export, we charge a license fee. So it's almost like we have this air of, this is our standard.
Right.
We don't, but certainly, with things like COVID, you need to put food on the table.
Yeah,
I've got staff,
so
I've got a warehouse, we've got commitments with things, and 2 boys still at home. So, you need to be sensible and practical about the opportunities that are presenting themselves. Sometimes I'm happy just to be approached by a wonderful opportunity, and we got approached by a very well-known company from China a number of years ago.
Right.
And I had breakfast with this billionaire and his entourage.
Breakfast with a billionaire.
Yes.
How fabulous.
And I think I was sitting at the breakfast thinking, I left school at 15 and I'm having and he's offering to buy my business over breakfast. And he's like the 10th richest man in China. So it was more of, I love the picture of this.
Yeah.
But didn't really have an intention of doing that. We weren't big enough at the time, and I wasn't happy to hand over documents, and it wasn't the right business partner, at the end of the day. But the fact that experience was a story and part of the journey that I could share, not just with my children, but with other women in business. Yeah. And I think it's a really fun thing to be able to share some of these wonderful stories.
Well, so do I.
Yeah.
I think it's really empowering and it's motivating and inspiring and a lot of that. But I love hearing about, just the things that come out of left field and transform a business, but also to have that integrity to say, which I don't know whether I would have. I just don't know if anyone ever approached me about my business, but to be able to say, look, as much as I'd love the money, this is just not a good fit, or I don't want to work with you, or I don't want your mucky paws all over my business.
Yes. I think there's not a lot of that happens because the nature of our brand and our people
You're
know.
Attracting.
They know me.
Yeah.
And they know our business.
Yeah.
So I think we do attract the right kind of partners and retailers. And I'd love to get some more support from Australian retailers. I think, if we didn't have export, we wouldn't have survived. And it's a real shame that such a heritage brand in Australia hasn't been picked up.
So you're not everywhere in Australia?
We're not everywhere.
Right.
I mean, part of the reason was because of what I said. There's too much similarity in the brands that
But is that still happening now? Couldn't you... I don't know.
The market has opened up a little bit, and that brand had some issues with ACCC and some other things that went on. So I think it just muddied the waters a bit and opened up the category for other players. But now there are so many competitors, and we're so busy with export. But it would be wonderful because I think, we were almost forced to focus on export because there just wasn't the market here to sustain our brand and our business long term.
Which I guess is probably true if anyone wants a really big business. The Australian population just isn't big enough to support it. But on the other hand, what an absolute pity. Well, hopefully from doing this interview, and I'll really push it out and let everyone know about it because you've been around forever and you do have such integrity. Yeah. It's a pity that it's such a big name overseas. But I mean, you do hear that about brands that become big overseas and just hasn't really kind of taken off.
I think, look, the good thing is we do have a good footprint here, including with Myer and some pharmacies. But there's some brands that are overseas that don't have any presence here at all. So for me, that doesn't work because we are an Australian brand and we need some footprint here. I think if we can't succeed here, it's
no. Well, that's right. But I love that you've had that strategy as well. Okay, now we're just into the silly questions at the end of the podcast. First one is, and a journalist gave me this suggestion. So I'm basically not taking any responsibility for it. But is there a quirky fact about you that most people don't know that you'd be up for sharing? It's a good question, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if this is a great thing, but it's an interesting thing that not a lot of people know outside my immediate family. I saw yesterday on social media that the Real Housewives of Melbourne's just relaunching season 5.
Right.
Well, I was approached for season 1.
Ooh, were you?
Yeah, so I didn't know what it was. It's totally not me. But I was thinking...
I'm glad you didn't, because you're right. Those women were, I wouldn't think.
So I met with the producers, but I thought, I did say to them, if you have an amazing show about women giving back to the community or charity or female entrepreneurs, let me know.
Yeah, I'm the one. Amazing. Okay, and the last question is about phone apps, and obviously that has no relation to anything else other than I love my phone myself. Have you got some business apps that you use on your phone that you love that you can tell us about?
Yeah, sure. Look, I've used Skype to do an ABC TV interview
really?
for live for TV.
Right.
I have used Zoom a million times last year. But what I have to say, doing a lot of business in Asia, I love Wechat.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
So if people
Can
are
you
in
speak Chinese? I mean, how does an English person get on WeChat? I know there are people that do, but now, as you're here, I'll ask you.
我的中文不好.
Oh, my goodness.
It means my Chinese is not good.
Right, okay, sounds really good.
Yeah, but I did teach myself some Chinese,
Right.
and there's some similarities in Hong Kong Cantonese,
But
Mandarin.
will WeChat translate?
It does translate.
So you can press a button and say, right, this is what I'm saying in English. And...
So there's a like a feed which is called Your Moments, almost like an Instagram feed.
Right.
So mine looks like a magazine.
Okay.
So
and how many followers have you got?
It's your contacts. So you don't take
It's
followers unless you
different.
know them because
Right.
there's security issues.
Okay.
So, but I probably have 500
really
actual
amazing.
quality contacts
Yeah.
that I have got from being in Taiwan. A lot of Koreans, Singapore, Malaysia, they use it as well. Hong Kong and
Is it something
China.
that you think Australian business owners should get onto?
I think with the China opportunity and China and this
Well, whoever knows how that's going to go, but
I just think I've been in China working in China for 12 years, and whatever happens at the political level doesn't affect the grassroots
really? Oh, that's good to
business.
know.
And I think if you've built those good relationships, China isn't just about China.
Yeah.
I mean, China is about Hong Kong, Taiwan, and other regions. So I think there's a lot of people that don't live in China that use WhatsApp. WhatsApp and
yes,
and
WhatsApp
WeChat.
is all I know in India.
But WeChat is, I think it's a great tool for me having strong business relationships across Asia.
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing. And then what about fun? Do you play on your phone at all? Like, I mean, for instance, I have to put up my hand and say I'm obsessed with Candy Crush and Words with Friends.
Look,
Most of the women that I speak to don't play on their phones.
no, I'm one of those mums that say to
Get off your phone.
my adult boys, no phones at the dinner table, and all of that sort of thing, and I live by that. So
No, not even if you're sitting on a plane or bored in a waiting room.
not playing. I would be working, as in curating some nice content for social media.
I should do more of that. Okay, last question is, how can people get hold of Aroma Baby or you if they love the sound of this and want to, take it further?
Sure. So on a business level, quite active on LinkedIn.
Okay, great.
I'm a business influencer with the right fit. So I do work through there, curating content or presenting, etc.
Yeah.
I've got Lady Catherine's Life, which is my
Have you?
Instagram handle.
Right.
And you'll see that there is beauty, travel, presenting, and there's a massive food one. So I'll tell you another little fun fact. I applied for MasterChef this year during COVID.
Oh my goodness!
And I got an audition. So
Wow.
yeah.
So, I mean, does that mean you might get in?
No,
Because
it
the
means
audit-
that it's
finished.
It's finished and they're starting next week.
And did you like it? Like, would you be up for are you going to try again?
I
love that show. I'm
couldn't
obsessed
believe
with
that
cooking.
I got an audition.
Yeah.
And I felt so proud and excited. I live for food.
Yeah.
I want to write a food and travel book and bring it back to the ingredients and the produce, my upbringing and, growing things. So
like an Italian cookbook?
that type of thing, all connected with, food and skincare and having skincare recipes in there as well.
Okay.
So I'm very, very passionate. I have a massive love of food and I would be working in food if I wasn't in skincare.
Right.
But I think the two are very connected.
So back to the question, would you try for MasterChef again? Did you get to that first bit where I've only seen the beginning of the shows where they have sort of, 100 people and everyone cooks away.
No. And when I look at the auditions, I think these people live and breathe.
Oh yeah, like you'd have to just give your life away.
And you would.
3 or 4 months. But to live for food, I mean, I'm with you. I would think it would be great fun. And you watch their skills.
Yes, it
just goes stratospheric over the period.
I think because I had some involvement in this particular audition, this series, I get emotional every time I see the ad, and I think that's an example of how passionate I am.
You are, yeah.
But I have a skincare business at the moment, and I guess I'll be exiting that in the next little while.
And maybe then you'll
and
go,
then
right,
I'll focus
I'm
on
really
food
gonna go hard for
and live with my
MasterChef.
passion.
Or start your own show. If you're
Yeah.
going to do a book around, and I'm going to start a TV network, so maybe you can
Amazing.
have a show on there.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be all about women and business. But maybe you could have a show that brings skincare and food together.
Yeah, sounds great.
Wouldn't it be amazing if you were cooking up recipes of, okay, here's how you make pasta and here's how you make your night cream to put on before you go to bed or whatever. Amazing. Well, Catherine, I don't even know what to say other than thank you so, so much. I have loved hearing your story. I can't wait to share this.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great.